Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today's Thursday, September 18th, 2025, and I've got an ostrich update for you. There are police helicopters buzzing the tower, buzzing the ostrich farm, and that's got to be, well, concerning, right? If you're in the middle of the night, or at least it was dark, I don't know, middle of the night, and you've got police helicopters flying over your property. Crazy town. Antifa to be declared a terrorist organization by Donald Trump in the United States. That's interesting. I think that there's a whole lot of things going on with that. And usually if a terrorist organization is declared in the United States, we do that in Canada. But I mean, we declared all the Samadan as a terrorist organization. They've actually declared it as a terrorist organization up until a couple of days ago. It was still collecting charity status in Canada and collecting money and all sorts of crazy stuff. So even if we do declare Antifa as terrorists, I'm not really holding my breath for anything really to change unless they got caught up in planning something in the United States and they get arrested by the FBI. But I don't think Canada would easily let them out. Oh, we don't know where they are. They're in your custody right now. Yeah, well, I'm not sure we could find them in our custody. So, right, Canada's kind of being a D-bag with regards to the United States and being cooperative. Apparently, even with fentanyl, Canada was operating on U.S. soil and withholding evidence and information from their U.S. counterparts on U.S. soil, and they were pissed, right? So that's, man, crazy stories going on. But I don't have a lot of confidence that we're going to work with the United States to stamp out Antifa, even if Donald Trump does declare them a terrorist organization, even though I think that's probably a good move on his part because they are. And yeah. And I think governments are funding them. The United Kingdom have cobbled together the corpse of the Uniparty into reform. So I've said Nigel Farage has made a deal, and I think he's made a deal. And so I'll show you some new Uniparty members for the Reform Party in the United Kingdom. USMCA review has been triggered. Yikes. I hope that it doesn't change too many things because that will send Canada into a depression and not good. 2026, I guess. That's next year and faster than you think. It'll be here before you know it. Canada's not making any progress in trade negotiations now with the United States. We're ignoring them in favor of going to Mexico and signing useless paper. And we've got a rate cut to 2.5%, but the House of Commons is back, and I've got a whole grab bag of monetary governance here, and we got to talk about trade because the USMCA is a mess and a whole bunch to get to. So let's get to it first. Pierre Poilievre, I've got this in two clips because it's in two clips, but it's hilarious. And Mark Carney is very wooden, right? He's like a bad actor line, right? Oh, hi, Mark. Here is Pierre Poilievre, and he's asking Mark Carney a question.
Surely, if he was such an expert, he would know the size of his own deficit. It's now halfway through the fiscal year. 6 months have gone by, and he has announced $40 billion of additional spending. Deficits drive up inflation, grocery prices, housing costs, and interest rates. They drive out investment from our country and uncertainty that destabilizes our economy. That's why every other prime minister in Canadian history has announced the deficit at the beginning of the fiscal year. We're 6 months in. Does he even know the size of his own deficit?
Mr. Speaker, I know many things. I know many things.
Right. So the Conservatives laughed at him because this is a wooden Mark Carney who is, I think, taking speech and speech lessons, speaking lessons, and he is reducing the uhs. But again, the bravado is coming out. So I know many things, right? This is a little bit ridiculous, this whole exchange. Here's Mark Carney's response to, does he even know the deficit? Does he even know the number?
Mr. Speaker, I know many things. I know many things. And one of the things I know, the member opposite, the leader of the opposition.
Bad acting. Like, you can see this bad acting, right? This is a very, very bad actor acting badly, but this is real life.
Just mentioned interest rates. One thing I know is that Canadian interest rates are much lower than American interest rates. They're lower because this country's fiscal situation is strong, because this government has a plan to grow this economy, and we will keep doing it.
Our fiscal situation is strong. Our fiscal situation is not strong. It's not strong. He knows many things, but he doesn't know anything about our fiscal situation. So, man, it's pretty incredible. CBC Watcher says Carney is asked in question period by Polyev what his fiscal anchors are. Carney says, and this government does have fiscal anchors. Oh, right. Hold on. We didn't see that part because I moved on too early. So apologies. We'll watch Carney do an overacted, it's like we're sitting in the Shakespeare theater and it's Captain Picard there playing Macbeth. I don't think Picard overacted with his Shakespeare, but I have seen Shakespearean overactors at Shakespeare at the Stratford Festival. And this reminds me of that. And you're supposed to take it seriously. But in my head, I think this guy doesn't have any clue what he's doing. I think the same now.
Speaker, the collapsing economy is bringing down interest rates, but the financial expert doesn't even know what his own deficit is. But another financial expert spoke yesterday. The parliamentary budget officer said the deficit will absolutely be higher because of additional spending. He said he doesn't know what the government's fiscal anchors are because they do not exist. He says the labor market sucks and wages are not going up. These are quotes. Is this why Liberal members on the committee who heard those truth bombs threatened that the Prime Minister would fire the parliamentary budget officer after 166 days?
Oh, sorry.
Speaker.
Apologies. It's in the next video. It's in this video where he says we do have fiscal anchors. Here is Mark Carney talking about fiscal anchors.
Mr. Speaker, the collapsing economy is bringing down interest rates, but the financial expert does.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I don't recognize that, Mr. Speaker. I don't recognize that characterization. I just appointed the parliamentary budget officer, and this government does have fiscal anchors. This government has fiscal anchors. We are going to spend less so the country can invest more. We are going to balance the operational budget in 3 years. We are going to have a declining level of debt, and we're going to do all of that because we're building the strongest economy in the G7.
I did not. Strongest economy in the G7? Who's buying this? Nobody's buying this. Keith says the Carney government's reckless spending is tanking Alberta's economy and fueling inflation, stealing our kids' future. It's time for Alberta independence to take back control of our future. On this CTV morning, they're talking about Champagne. They're talking with the finance minister, Champagne, and his talking points are 1945. That's an interesting year. That's an interesting year to choose, right? After the Second World War, we're at 1945 now. Weird. Generational investment. And it doesn't matter if it's a generational investment. It still takes money out of your operational budget, right? Spend less to invest more and not to answer any questions other than to repeat the talking points. So I showed you this yesterday, I think, but it's them claiming a strong economy when the opposite is true. Holly Doan says GAC Corporate Minister, Global Affairs Canada Corporate Minister Anita Anand will not tell Parliament what groups her department is financing in Gaza. And if we don't even know who they're financing, we don't know how much either. Anand invoked confidentiality in refusing a request by one MP to detail who has received taxpayer aid under the little-known Canada Fund for Local Initiatives. So people don't know about this, and we want to find out about this, and they won't answer questions. Blacklock's reporter says exasperated interim budget officer tells MPs to worry about national deficits. We'll update figures next week since it takes Finance Canada 10 months to put an up-to-date Excel spreadsheet up. And so that's not great. And here is that guy being exasperated. We'll listen to him for 2 minutes because what he's saying is starkly different than what we're being told by Mark Carney and the leadership around finance, budget, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of people are questioning Mark Carney's intelligence with regards to all of this investing stuff. It sounds like he doesn't have a basic understanding of money. Here is this exchange.
Mr. Jakes, I really appreciate the fact that you recognize we are not all accountants here and that you're going to help us understand things. So in that vein, for regular Canadians, can you explain just in simple words, what the Liberals mean when they say they're going to separate an operating budget from a capital budget? Like what changes on the books when they do that?
So to answer your last question first, the bottom line of the government will not change. So the international public sector standards that everyone uses to measure the deficit and levels of debt, that will not change. And the first reason that won't change is those are the accounting standards. The second reason is the ratings agencies won't let you change it. Like, that's the first thing we're going to go to.
I think it's so funny how apologetic and like he's whispering, like the ratings agencies, oh, they just won't let us change that. Next question. And he looks so like, I'm sorry about that. Like the government's asked and he's had to field this question a bunch. Like, why can't we measure it by the way we want to measure it? And they say, because the rating agencies look at it a different way. This is the way they look at it. And it's the only way they look at it. You can't tell them we don't provide that number. We provide this happier number. It's not going to fly. And he just looks so apologetic about it, and I think it's funny.
And if they have a sniff that somehow there's a change in presentation, you bet your boots that we're going to be paying more for debt pretty quickly.
Because they'll downgrade our credit rating, and the debt will be more expensive because our credit rating will be downgraded. Because when he says if they get a sniff of misrepresentation, that's like saying the government's playing a shell game and we've noticed the shell game to try and hide this stuff. And because we've noticed that you're playing this shell game, probably something's going on. So I don't think that anything's happened yet, but we'll see.
In terms of operating capital, again, we on our end, we don't know what the government precisely has in mind. So there's been no backgrounder published on the website. In some of the communication materials, the government has mentioned the UK, the United Kingdom, who's had a similar system in place. In that situation, on the operating side, the UK includes the operating expenses that I mentioned earlier, so the traditional measure, in addition to other types of transfer payments. On the capital side, they include the traditional measure as well as transfer payments or money that's being paid out to third parties who also invest in capital. So in the case, we have a report that's going to be coming out on Thursday that looks at infrastructure spending. So the federal government transfers, I don't know, over the next 5 years, I think it's going to be over $100 billion to provinces, municipalities, and First Nations to spend on infrastructure. That doesn't show up as capital spending for the federal government, but it's actually resulting in building capital assets. So that's something that they could have in mind. I don't know. I'm not inside the tent, so.
Okay, so I guess the like your bottom line is debt is debt, right? If family takes out a loan for a new roof, it's still debt, even if they call it an investment. It's and same for Ottawa, borrowing, it's still debt.
Yeah, it's absolutely still debt. I think the nuance, and potentially I'm hopeful, potentially I'm not naive. The nuance is, if this is the new management approach for the government of Canada, and every time they are making a new spending decision, they are saying, okay, is this going to result in some sort of productive asset that's going to provide a stream of long-term benefits? Then that is certainly different than the way that the government of Canada has managed its money up to this point internally. And if that's going to be the way that they're going to manage things, then I would hope that they would convey that and explain that to parliamentarians just by way of transparency, because you deserve to know how they make decisions.
Yeah, we deserve a lot, and we're not getting even a quarter of what we should be getting. We're not getting, oh man, we're not getting anything really. Leah says the entire population of Yukon Territory is less than 50,000 people. So why does queer Yukon society need almost $1 million to combat anti-2GSBLTA hate? Right? And so they have $1 million given February 3rd, 2025 to combat hate of gay people, I guess, in the Yukon. Although I don't think it's gay people hate. I don't think gay people go by this weird acronym. I don't think that's what it is. I don't think people are hating gay people. I think this is communist funding. And I think communists use this to insulate themselves from being examined too closely. I think there's communists being directly funded by this kind of crap, just like we saw the other day with the immigration where dog salons were hiring line cooks. I think it's the same damn thing, just a different kind of scam. Same style of scam though, right? So we're being told LGBT funding, and really they're brainwashing people and arming them with weapons to destabilize society, and we're paying for it. But that's just speculation. But I bet you if we looked hard at this, we wouldn't find people combating, quote, hate, right? I wonder what one or two of their initiatives are, right? Maybe we should look into this. Holly Doan says federal diversity, equity, and inclusion programs within 29 departments have cost $1.049 billion since 2016. Grants include AAFC Canada subsidies for cultural vegetables and Veterans Affairs funding for Congolese war vets. Congolese war vets? Like Canadian war vets where we went to the Congo? Congo? Or are we paying for Congolese war vets in the Congo? Like, are we just funding them for fun? Because our vets don't need anything. They're fine being homeless on the street. Bradshaw says, but I just find it interesting how much money is going to this diversity, equity, inclusion, and LGBT stuff. I think the LGBT stuff is more on the nose funding of destabilizing groups, right? Communist or not. But when you talk diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think this is the fund that they start going after colleges, universities, and institutions. This is the stuff. This is the money used to turn judges, used to turn teachers and heads of departments and people who are in charge of speakers and all of that kind of stuff. They're getting money on the back end. And I'm sure it's funded by the federal government to make sure that the conditions aren't right or the places that are under that umbrella are not friendly to right-wing points of view. And they've got their people in positions and they're using their money to shore up their support and make sure they never lose that support. And it's all hidden behind these nice, friendly sounding words that are actually quite devastating. Bradshaw says, remember when a conservative had to resign over orange juice, but with liberals, it's okay for them to spend as much taxpayer money as they want. And Blacklock's reporter again is reporting the Governor General of Canada defies MP's plea to stop the spending and bills $1,117 for new shoes. In addition to thousands of dollars worth of wardrobe extras, we're in dire need of more transparency. I mean, if she did $16 orange juice, that'd be it. That would be absolutely it, right? She'd be fired. But because it's $1,100 worth of shoes, no problems. It feels like there's a coded message in there somewhere, but I can't figure it out. 3 1s and a 7? I don't know. I can't figure it out. But still. John says, NDP housing announcement goes awry. This is actually kind of funny because a woman's there to support the NDP, and then she gets to the microphone. She's like, I'm a Canadian citizen. I've worked here for 50 years. I can't afford a house. What the heck's going on? And the NDP are like, whoa, lady. That's very alt-right of you. Hold on. Here we go.
The party invited Shirley Gallagher to its election announcement to share her experience looking for an affordable place to live. Gallagher came home to Newfoundland from Alberta to retire, and she says she couch surfed for 8 months before finding an apartment. Then she said something unexpected, that the federal government's immigration policies are to blame.
Yes, that's why there's a crisis. I mean, there let too many people in, apparently, obviously, and that's why, I mean, I'm a Canadian citizen. I worked 50 years of my life, and I can't afford a house. This is something.
The NDP quickly distanced itself from the idea.
Hilarious. I think it's even more funny about how the news kind of like sets this all up. They didn't let us listen to what the NDP said and then what she said. They give the whole story, which I guess maybe you need to condense it all down, but it's just funny to me. It just makes me laugh, right? Here is how good are our finances in Canada. We're talking housing here and interest rates and all sorts of stuff. And it's bad. Things are bad in Canada fiscally for people to the point where moving houses is prohibitive. It used to be it's expensive to move because you got to move your services. It costs money, time, energy, all this stuff. But once you've moved, the monthly costs maybe aren't necessarily going to go down, but aren't going to be wildly increased either, right? It's going to kind of wash. It's going to be a wash. You're going to be okay. If you were spending $1,300 before and you're $1,500 a month now, plus taxes and stuff like that, it'll be fine type deal. But now it's drastically different. And I'm not even talking taxes, just the mortgage. Nick says, it currently costs about $800 more per month to buy a house with a mortgage than to keep your house with a mortgage. Helps explain why homebuyers' demand is so low and why federal rate cuts aren't re-stimulating demand. Mortgage rates need to be 4% to, quote, unlock this market. And then somebody says, never going to happen. Will never happen. Go ahead and post another clickbait video on housing market crash. Wages have increased too much. Inflation would skyrocket if those things happen. And it is announced that CP24 announced Bank of Canada cuts key interest rate to 2.5%. Oh, so inflation then. Sounds fun. Sounds super good. Here is Shazi. She says, I think it's a she, says the GTA is drowning in power of sale. houses that are on power of sale because people are just losing them. They can't pay. Homes taken over by lenders are up 60% in 1 year. 228 active listings flagged. Others say the real number is closer to 780 to 3%. That's 3% of all listings. Courts are jammed. Borrowers are broke. Even teachers, firefighters, and cops are losing homes. Condos, lenders are eating $200,000 losses on units that once sold for $600,000 now can't fetch $4. The collapse isn't just investors, it's working families, it's the system buckling. It's 2008 deja vu, only worse. Yep, that's true. Absolutely true. Franco Tetrazino says Via Rail handed out $11 million in bonuses last year. Records show the average bonus for Via executives was $110,000. The government bailed out Via Rail to the tune of $1.9 billion over the last 5 years just to cover the company's operating losses. That's an expensive bailout. But just back to the houses really, really quickly. The 2.5% interest cut is, I don't think, going to fix the math on home buying for people. And I think that it is going to make it easier for investors to buy the houses, and we haven't fixed any of those problems. So watch the inflation and home prices maybe start to tick up again because the interest rate is down. And so if they were trying to... The politicians don't want the houses losing value because if the houses lose value, the boomers will blame the politicians. So the politicians want to keep the housing at about the value it is now, higher than it is now, right? They want those $600,000 condos to sell at 6. They want standalone homes to sell at 8, right? That's where they want it. That's what that's what they're trying to do. And so they're cutting rates, right? I think that's what's going on there. And I don't think that it's going to work because they've effed the economy on so many levels that people are worried, and stability is better than uncertainty. And getting into a new mortgage at this point in time probably would be more uncertain. Here's Maxime Bernier. He says, in this difficult economic environment and for the sake of Canadians, let's embrace affordable options like Chinese EVs to save hard-earned dollars. Doug Ford, free markets, not tariffs, protect consumers and drive innovation. Doug Ford says Canada's tariffs on Chinese-made EVs are critical to protecting more than 157,000 direct jobs in Ontario and hundreds of thousands of indirect jobs across the country. For the sake of these workers' livelihoods, the federal government needs to maintain its 100% tariffs. And the canola industry would like a word, but I don't know what the answer is here because I think if Canada takes off the EV tariffs, Donald Trump will have a problem with that, and that will make USMCA trade deals more difficult. So it's complicated, man. It's complicated. It's not easy. The solution is not obvious, right? Especially when they've had 10 years to completely F up all of your economy. Here is I See Crap Daily, and he says, no, I don't want Chinese EVs. He's comparing to BMW. So I'm not entirely sure how my car stacks up to a BMW. One of the things that I've read and talked about is if you are driving a car and your head is where the tailgate is of a truck, that's probably the safety implications from that are massive. Like if you get into an accident, your head could be taken off, but they're not going to notice because your head was taken off at their bumper type deal, right? And so a lot of people driving around in Ford F-150s or big Denali's or stuff like that, stuff that puts you up above that, you're much more likely to walk away from an accident, right? So anyway, that's just one little bit of safety advice or safety thinking. But this guy says, no, I don't want those EVs. And I'm just thinking about the economic impact, really. This guy, okay, we'll do this and then we'll cut the stream. This guy is talking about what's going on really. And Wide Awake Media says, there's a plan here. It's unfolding around the world. This is economic. And it is. I think this guy's right. Here we go.
In case you can't see what's going on, there's a plan here. It's unfolding around the world. The first thing is to create chaos and overwhelming the systems. There's people being brought in, overwhelming all kinds of systems. There's a catch and release policy. Cops are being punished for doing their job, dealing with actual crimes. And the people who are committing these crimes are getting off and being released. Meanwhile, you're told not to deal with someone breaking into your home. Why is everyone going along with this? You have to understand, this is all about bringing in a digital ID and a one world government. They want to keep track of everything. That's why they're sowing chaos. So we demand order. And then they're going to say, oh, this digital ID is what's going to give you order. It's going to give you the ability to relive your life. And we'll keep track of everybody who's bad. Not the actual bad people, though. And then they're going to say, oh, we're going to keep track of your carbon score so that we could save the planet from climate change. Don't pay attention to the fact, though, that they are going to have to create all kinds of new natural gas plants to power this AI. And the fact that they've also told people to put in heat pumps and electrify everything, they're going to start giving the electricity to the AIs rather than to people to survive, because you've been a non-compliant, useless eater. Anyway, that's just a brief summary of what's really going on. If you don't understand already, please start looking into it. Look into the other videos I've made, and please share this. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah, it's the Hegelian dialect. It's the problem, reaction, solution thing, and that's what they're pushing. And there's lots more show. If you want to check it out, head over to CanadaPoly.com. Somebody was asking, where do you stream the whole show? I can't stream the whole show. I can only stream the shorts show, and then